আলাইকুম। আমি কাজী মশরুল হুদা, লিটল বাংলাদেশ, হলিউড, ক্যালিফোর্নিয়া থেকে সবাইকে প্রীতি ও শুভেচ্ছা জানিয়ে শুরু করছি ফ্র্যাঙ্কলি স্পিকিং উইথ হুদা। Frankly Speaking with Huda. Today's episode, what American youth, especially Bangladeshi American new generation, what they're thinking about this election. And here we have a guest, Sarah Huda, and we'll talk about election. What are you thinking about this election is coming up, 46th presidential election? What is important to the youth peoples?
The importance is representation. So whether it be for senators or for presidents, someone who can represent the ideas that we're looking for, especially for progressive youth.
What kind of progressive? How it can be done?
Well, I mean, right now it's either Biden or Trump, and neither of which fully speak to progressive Americans. But obviously, Trump is more of a detrimental aspect of America. So we go for Biden because it's the best option, but it's not the option that we all want because he's for police, he's for guns, he's more conservative than the progressives, but it's...
If you compare, then...
one is better than the other.
Why you want to give a vote to Biden, but why not with Trump? He's running 4 years, and what do you see? He didn't do right things.
Nothing. He didn't do anything right. He's a cancer to America. He's racist, he's sexist, and he's a narcissist. And so he was so full of himself, he let hundreds of thousands of Americans die because he defunded the pandemic relief, that the program that Obama put in, and made sure it was taken care of because of his pride. And from that, people died. And he boasts that, oh, he did such a great job, yet hundreds, like 250,000 Americans died on his watch because of his negligence and his slow response to a major catastrophe.
So you think that when he is in the office in America, the racism come up, or he's solved this case?
He's a racist, and he's excusing other people to be okay with it. And so the white supremacists or the people of the South who already are racist see someone in power who is blatantly racist and gets away with it, and empowers them to speak their truth, which is harmful.
What do you think then Black Lives Matter, this movement?
It's a good movement that's bringing focus to the fact that there's civil unrest in America. And for Black Americans, there's evident racism and bigotry in America, but the continuance of their protesting, which has been over 3 months all across the country, is to show that people aren't going to accept it anymore, and that the racism has always been evident in America, but at least now people are saying they're not going to take it anymore.
Well, Biden is supporting this, or Democratic?
Yes and no, because the major aspect of Black Lives Matter movement is defunding and deregulating the police, because they are at the source of the deaths in America for Black Americans, as well as for the brutality they faced. But Biden is for police, and so that doesn't speak to their truth, because he 100% supports police without even thinking about deregulating or defunding them at all.
Why are you supporting defunding the police? What will benefit that?
they get so much money that's not necessary, and they become militarized, and so they're like junior military, and they're not even wearing blue anymore. They're wearing army gear as they storm into American cities for the civil unrest. And so they don't need that much money. They don't need tanks. They don't need all this armor and high-powered weapons, and they don't need the gas tanks and everything that they get. There's no reason for it. They're supposed to be protecting, yet they're
Civilians.
they're hurting civilians with their militarized weapons, and they get too much money to support all of those things.
So they get brutal mentality.
Yeah, because they think they're part of the military, and in the military, their task is to hurt.
But the Trump people think that if you defunding, then it will be a insecurity for the community.
It doesn't mean that, because it's to defund them. You take away the amount of money that's given and put into resources that are actually helpful. For domestic violence, they need family counselors to help and assist, and they need, for trauma counselors, they need people who actually help the community, because police, their aspect is to de-escalate things in an aggressive manner, whereas these other resources do it in a way that's trained. Police they're only trained as how to use a gun and how to go into a situation, but they're not trained to be a psychologist. They're not trained to de-escalate situations in an emotional manner. Their only training is to meet within an aggressive way, and not everything counts for that.
Do you think that police brutality can be eliminated, reduced through the body camera, and make them to psychological training, all these
Well,
things?
they have to go through, in order to become a police officer, do a psych evaluation, and that doesn't stop them. You give them body cams, they turn it off and say it broke for their convenience, or it shut off, but they turn it off so they can go ahead and do things without being reprimanded. And that's why Americans are filming them, because there's no accountability for the police, because they'll just shut off their cameras. No one holds them accountable. And so people have to film them in order to show what they're doing. Or
how
else
about
no one
this
believes them.
idea, the police department will have another department to overlook their justification calls?
They're all corrupt. If you have police officers overlooking police officers, they're all going to be brothers and protect themselves. There's internal investigations for police, but that they're not in the means of the people. They're in the means for protecting the police department and making sure that they don't get bad images for themselves, or the city doesn't get sued. But they're protecting themselves. They're not protecting people.
So if Trump wins, then he promises that he will do better immigration, better economic, unemployment.
He doesn't know what he's doing. He makes false promises without knowing the actual democratic way to get from point A to B. He says he'll just use executive power for everything when it's not constitutional to do so. He doesn't know what he's doing, and he's a narcissist and just wants to look good without actually caring about the American people. He only cares about people who look like him, who think like him, and doesn't care about anyone else.
Well, if Democratic comes at this time, what they can do better than what he's doing?
You mean for like the next person?
Yeah, the next term, that 4 years is coming.
I mean, realistically, what people want is someone who will step in and protect immigrants, protect people who are undocumented, protect people of a minority, and protect people who are in lower classes, socioeconomic classes, protect those who can't protect themselves.
Because this country is built with the immigration. So all the immigrants are here, and you think that the diversity makes a better America?
That is what America is. It's people coming from all over the place to settle in. There's no national language for America because everyone is a melting pot. There's no And even so, from whites to people of color to blacks, they're being outweighed. The minority is soon to become white people.
You said at the beginning that neither is a good candidate. So, in your aspect, who could be a good candidate? What do you think?
I wanted Bernie Sanders. I went for him in 2016. I wanted him this year, and I still think he'd be better.
Why? Why you think Bernie is good?
Because he's a person of the people. He doesn't take money from corporations. He doesn't listen to lobbyists. So his influences are for the people, by the people, a grassroots movement, not influenced by someone with a bigger check. Every politician, including Biden, listen to lobbyists and get money from them that sways their opinion on what to do based on who's going to give them the bigger check. Bernie only got grassroots movement money. No billionaire, no millionaire, no one, no corporation funded his campaign. Only the people. He spent his whole life fighting police and for the people. And the biggest thing that no candidate offers is ending the wars that are pointless, that are destroying communities. There's casualties. They're bombing wherever and destroying beautiful countries. And killing Americans going over there just for oil. But no other candidate thinks about, because they only think about oil and the money for America. Medicare for all, and making sure that every American has access to insurance, just like every other country in the world has ability to make sure that their people are taken care of without worrying it's going to bankrupt them. He's environmental and concerned about future generations and their impact on America and the environment and how America is playing in the world. But because this party, he's technically an independent, but runs under the Democratic Party, and because this country is run by the two-party system, it's either conservative or super conservative. And the conservative party of the Democrats, all these old people who are afraid of change, made sure, even Obama made sure that he wouldn't win, because they don't want any disruption to their system. They want everything to be the same, and that's why America always is the same. Why every 4 years or 8 years, it's Republican, Democrat, because everyone wants just something different, back and forth, but nothing actually progresses, nothing changes. We're still in war. People are still in concentration camps in America. People are still being pushed out of the country, being deported, despite spending their whole lives here. There's no actual change over the course of America, because it's two people who are just basically the same.
Yeah, but President Trump accused them that they are trying to do socialist country in the America.
People are so afraid of socialism because they think it's something big. But your Social Security is a social program. Food stamps is a social program.
Socialism is not bad.
No, people are so afraid of socialism because they think
showing that Venezuela is what happened. Look, when it becomes a socialist and then they get poor.
There's the misunderstanding. Your taxes that goes towards the community is socialism, because your money is going to fund towards your community, and that's what it's supposed to be. Your taxes should pay for insurance to make sure everybody has insurance, instead of you paying,
like in Europe they have it.
Yeah, Britain has the National Health Service, Canada has government insurance, and there's nothing wrong with those two countries that are major developed nations. In Canada, if you have an accident and you get in an ambulance, it's not going to bankrupt you. Whereas here, if you get into an ambulance, even a 1 mile ride can cost you $2,000 just because and if they turn the lights on, it'll cost them more. And there's plenty of people where even like privatized ambulance companies that are not through the city have the right to deny service if you don't have insurance. So you could be laying out in the street dying. If you don't have insurance, they will drive away. Yeah. And that's not the type of America that anyone should have. If you're sick and you're hungry and you're poor, you should have access to health care, you should have access to food, and you should have access to housing. That is a natural right. It's not a right if you have enough money.
But it's a capitalist country.
Yeah, and capitalism is terrible. Capitalism favors the rich over the poor. capitalism makes sure that the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor. And most young Americans aren't saying for communism. They're saying, if I'm going to pay taxes, if I'm paying several $1,000s in taxes a year, I want to see my community better. I want to see homelessness eradicated, because there's places in Europe that they eradicated homeless. It costs more money to keep people on the street than it does to build housing and put them there. There's countries, it costs more money to put a homeless man in prison that's paid with my tax dollars, instead of using my tax dollars to build low-income housing to get them off the ground and into a home. Socialism is using the money that we put into America from our own taxes and giving it back and putting it back into the community, instead of funneling it into a police that kill Americans, instead of a military that destroys communities and does nothing but favor the rich. If I'm going to pay taxes, I want to make sure that people who can't get food have access to food and shelters. People who can't have health care, it costs Americans more for people without insurance to get care than people who have insurance. It's what the youth wants is their money to go back into their community, so it's a better America, not where it goes into someone's pocket and then people are still struggling. And for the pharmaceutical companies, where something that costs 50 cents to make, they charge $2,000, meaning people die because they can't afford insulin, they can't afford their diabetes medication. That's not what we want, and both candidates still don't favor fully that either, and that's why we're looking for someone who's progressive.
That's you think that new generation of America thinking like this?
Yeah, we as the youth want to see a better America, and we're tired of capitalism. We're tired of the rich getting richer and the police becoming a military and becoming what everyone is afraid of North Korea. This is what we're becoming. We're becoming like North Korea, where we can't do anything without worrying about going on the street and being killed. Black Americans are afraid to go for a jog during the middle of the day without fearing for their lives. That's just like these political...
Well, you're thinking these things because you're living in blue states, but those are the mid-America, they are not maybe thinking the same way.
All across the country, Black Lives Matter movement has been protesting for over 3 months, all across the country. There's pockets of blue counties, there's pockets of blue in a lot of places. Even Texas has blue parts to them. And all across the country, people are still, months later, still protesting for Breonna Taylor. They're still protesting for the numerous amount of Black Americans that were killed by police that have not been brought to justice.
What do you think that this election, in your opinion, who's going to win?
I've looked at reports, I've looked and done research for the numbers, and it's possible Biden can win, but it's so close that it honestly could be a coin flip, because both of them have very significant similarities that are close enough for, no one wants Biden, no one wants Trump, and so it's the difficulties of making sure that everyone goes out to vote, because our lives depend on it, because Trump is killing Americans, and if he gets reelected, people are afraid that more Americans are going to die. We're the only country in the world that hasn't gotten a handle on coronavirus, and people are still dying in droves.
You think that the immigrant people's, he's going to make it second-class citizen?
It already is. It's having immigrants that come in to seek asylum and having them in cage and kids in cages is unconstitutional. Having those kids in cages and immigrants in cages seeking asylum is unconstitutional. In our Constitution, it states that people can enter the country lawfully if they're seeking asylum from their countries. And they came in seeking asylum and they were put in cages. Hundreds of thousands of kids have gone missing because the country, America is known, and it's been proven that those kids that go missing, the country has sold into sex trafficking. These families are torn apart by Trump, and it's it's illegal, and people are fighting it because these kids are in cages, and hundreds of people in a tiny cage with no food, no clothes, no blankets, nothing. That's the kind of America that we live in under Trump. He treats these people like animals, and these people are getting separated from their homes. Kids go missing, and then investigation have found that the country has sold these kids into sex trafficking.
All right, we're almost ending. So, can you tell all the youths of American voters and then American voters that you have anything to say about voting, to who give to vote?
The biggest thing to focus on is to vote, your right to vote. And people have fought hard for your right to vote. And for those who can't speak, need to vote, because the American people, our lives depend on it. And if you don't vote, there's a chance that Trump can win again and more people will die.
All right, thank you very much for your interview with us, and appreciate for coming for Frankly Speaking with Huda. Thank you.